Hello everybody, how's it going, and welcome back to Hearts of Iron 4. Today we are in the 1984 mod, actually. Somebody had suggested this, and I kind of forgot this mod even existed for the longest time. So, yeah, we're in this mod, and we're going to see which of the totally deserving parties here is going to win and be just the one world to rule us all. You know, why have Big Brother and like Mother Russia? Why not just have one of the two of them? You know what I mean? So we're going to see who is going to be the ultimate one in 1984, the famous world made by Mr. George Orwell. Yeah, let's get started, I guess, and hope it doesn't crash. Alright, so we've got our first kind of conflicts going on here. We've got Free Arabia going into Persia, which looks like Persia was not ready for that conflict at all. However, Arabia seems to be very much ready. It looks like the Persians are putting up a bit of a front line now. We've got Himalaya on Russia itself. So Russia itself does have a decent amount of units, but it's not the like powerhouse you'd expect it to be, like right off the hop. Himalaya is definitely going to have some problems just because now Free India is in on that. But yeah, Russia isn't a shoo-in for this one, I don't think. They could win, definitely. They have a good chance, but I really don't think they're the shoo-in that they usually are. We've got Overlord China here as well, fighting the Indochinese. The Indochinese are actually doing quite well at the start here. Wonder if China can bounce back from that. We've got Manchuria Korea at war with the Japanese. I think the Japanese are normal. Yeah, they are. They're led by Mao, which is interesting because so is Overlord China, and I do believe Manchuria. Yeah, so Mao is everywhere. So yeah, there's not aggression pacts with other nations, but that will all end at some point. Oh, it looks like the Japanese are attempting to invade. Also, Airstrip 1 is here. So England doing what they do best, hiding on an island. We've got the Continental SSR at war with the Baltics, which was probably pretty expected. Revolutionary SSR, which is most of the Mediterranean coast and the Iberian Peninsula. They're at war with the Black Sea SSR, which is, well, southern Russia, Ukraine, the Pyrenees, and Turkey. Rest in peace, Himalaya. Rest in peace. And it looks like the Russians are going to go after Manchuria Korea here, which is going to be interesting. We'll see if the Russians can make a quick work of this, but the Manchuria Koreans definitely have the initial upper hand because the Russians have to move their troops, and they haven't. So, good job. Persia is now getting attacked by two sides. Free India and Arabia is wiping them out. Frontier and Free Africa are at war. So literally this is the war for freedom. Free Africa, Free Arabia, Free India, and Free Indochina are the most free nations in this world, which is not even saying much. They're not really that free, honestly. But, yeah, doesn't really matter. Free Africa versus Frontier. Hard to say who's going to really win that one. Frontier has a decent army, but so does Free Africa. It really depends if there's just somebody else joins the war. And if Free Africa is smart enough to move these fucking troops to the front line, they'd probably win, like, definitely. But, hey, oh well. Oh, shit. The Free Arabians are at war with the Black Sea SSR now. So the Revolutionary SSR is going to have a little bit of help on that front. The Baltics don't look like they're collapsing too harshly here. They're definitely losing here in the Baltics. That just looks gross. I'm so sorry. They're just so dead. They're still trying to land troops in here to reinforce the Baltic region, but I really don't think that's going to help them too much. I definitely think they're going to lose that zone, and they're going to get a lot of troops killed in the process, which isn't good, because they don't have a huge army really to begin with. So yeah, I do believe the Continental SSR is probably going to win this this conflict, honestly. The Black Sea, desperately trying to defend itself, poor bastards. In America, we have the 13 sectors destroying Grand Pacifica, which I expected to happen anyway. Gran Colombia also invading from the south, not as quickly, but trying to come up the peninsula here. Very good of them to do that anyway, because they're going to have a lot of choke points down here against the 13 sectors when that war comes very, very shortly. So the more of a buffer they have, the better off they're going to be. It'd be great if they could keep essentially north of this area here. So part of Costa Rica, Panama region there. Probably the best thing for them to hang on to if they can. Their army, 43 divisions, that's pretty decent. 13 sectors sitting at 34, but the 13 sectors are going to get more factories out of the Grand Pacifica than what Gran Colombia is probably going to get. So I imagine, yeah, 13 sectors has way more war score going on. But Grand Pacifica is definitely not out of this yet. They've got some fights still left in them, I imagine. I would imagine. It looks like Frontier is being pushed back very slowly by the Africans. If they can unite Africa, that would be really, really good for them, because the only way they can be invaded is by sea or through the Suez, which isn't going to be an easy invasion for anybody. So that's really good. The Black Sea SSR is very slowly collapsing. They're going to get cut off here in Turkey sooner than later, which means any troops that want to reinforce are going to have to go the long way around. And they're also very slowly being pushed back by the Revolutionary SSR, which is definitely a much weaker nation than its northern continental neighbor. So it's very interesting that they're actually considerably weaker. They're actually having a hard time with the Baltics, even with the Free Arabians invading. The Free Arabians have a very large military. I'm actually quite impressed there. Manchuria Korea still hanging on, very kind of barely. The Russians, they've got a decent amount of factories. They've got a good army now, probably a good 61 divisions total, which is quite large, honestly. 101 for the Free Indians. The Indians could go after them after the Chinese collapse. Indochina has surrounded just so many Chinese units. Oh my god. That is very messy. Oh my goodness. Yeah, the Chinese are not looking very healthy right now. Their poor troops are just surrounded everywhere. They're just so fucked, honestly. Oh god, that's nasty. How many troops do they even have? 69 total divisions for them. Wow, that is actually pretty damn impressive. Poor Manchuria, getting invaded by 2 enemies. They're doing actually very well on a defensive, and I think if the Japanese weren't at war with them, they'd actually be able to hold their own against the Russians for a time at least. 43 divisions, so yeah, but the Japanese invading from multiple ports is not doing them any favors, although the Japanese are about to lose Pusan if they're not careful, which is pretty irresponsible, although they could lose Seoul, which wouldn't... Yeah, oh well. Yeah, they're fighting for Pusan now. The Japanese made a mistake there. A huge mistake. But hey, what do you do? Either way, Manchuria Korea is definitely not going to survive forever. The Baltic SSR is in full collapse by the looks of it here now. Continental USSR is invaded straight up through into Norway and Sweden. And yeah, they're like super close to capitulating. Yeah, 57 divisions. They've only got around 10 left for them. Oh, Grand Pacifica just got annexed. The 13 sectors. Did they go to war with Gran Colombia right away? I don't even... Oh, yep, they did. Okay. I was wondering if they're going to go to war with them right away or like declare war on like Japan or somebody or Frontier that's a little bit weaker. Frontier is actually pushing back a little bit by the looks of it. I think the fact that they have Australia is helping them because they can produce units and then ferry them over rather than risking it somewhere else, right? Plus it gives them more factories that really can't be touched. So they've got 61 factories. I'm going to say probably about half of those are on Australia, honestly. 73 factories, though, for Africa. So, I mean, they could outproduce, but it's just whether they can actually hang on. They're also not utilizing their aircraft, which is not a smart move, considering, obviously, Frontier is... Yeah. So that's not a very smart move by the Africans. They were doing really well for a little while, and then they just kind of collapsed. The Baltic or the Black Sea SSR now looks like it's fully collapsing in from the Revolutionary SSR and the Free Arabia. I think Free Arabia is probably going to go after the Revolutionary SSR after this. I think it'd be a smart move. They have a good amount of factories. They would give them some very, very valuable land. And it's probably the weakest neighbor they have. They've got like 40-some divisions. Hold on. Wait a minute. Hold the phone. Okay, never mind. It's Mother Russia. I thought that was fucking like Jake Paul. I was like, holy shit, what? Free Arabia. Yeah, they have more divisions, so yeah, it'd be probably smarter. They're not going to go after anybody else there. Oh, Free Indian Republic declared war on Manchu Korea. Oh, okay, so they're going to go after Manchu Korea first, which makes sense. I guess they are weaker. And the Soviets declared war on what's left of the Black Sea Republic, which makes absolutely no fucking sense, because they're literally about to surrender right now. And yep, just as I thought. So the Continental SSR and Free Arabia have declared war on the Revolutionary Corps. Saw that coming. Like a million miles away. Everybody saw that coming. They're the weakest link in Europe right now, now that the Baltics are gone and the Black Sea is gone. I guess except for maybe Airstrip 1? How many units does Airstrip 1 even have? 38. Yeah, they're pretty weak overall. Big Brother's actually pretty shit, honestly. I mean, he has the most land by far, over, like, if you count everything that he had in the beginning, but he's just pretty shit, you know? I don't think Free Arabia is going to get as much as it wanted to out of this war because of the Continental SSR invading as well, which is a bit of a shame. If they were smart, they would naval invade the boot and try to take as much of Italy as possible, or naval invade, like, Gibraltar or something. Try to get some of that land before it's all gone. So it's probably not going to take very long for them to capitulate. They're fighting on an all front, and the land isn't very thick. I mean, they could lose everything but Italy and the Iberian Peninsula pretty quickly, and then they kind of are. The Continental SSR is having some trouble invading them, but the Arabians really are not. The Arabians are just sweeping down. Like, they are just murdering their troops. I feel bad. Like, good God. Manchu Korea, not going to hang on for much longer. I think that once they lose Vladivostok, that's going to be it. I really hope so. I want some different wars in Asia here. This has been kind of crazy. Free Indochina actually got some really valuable land out of that, too. India did not get that much out of that. Like, that's kind of disappointing for them. 133 factories total for them. That's kind of crazy. So Airstrip, Indonesia declared war on Japan. Okay, everybody's just declaring war on Japan because they suck, I guess. Oh, wow, yeah, they really do. 28 divisions. That's pretty shit. I wonder if they'll actually successfully be able to invade them, though, because the Japanese Navy is 12 ships strong, which is not terrible. 35... Okay, never mind. I thought it was better than what it was. But yeah, everybody at war with them, their navy's going to get absolutely slaughtered. They probably will get navally invaded somewhere. Where? Don't know. Maybe Hokkaido first. Could be from the southern tip, Nagasaki area. Maybe Hiroshima. Hard to say. They probably will get naval invaded, though. Indochina is just absolutely blitzing them now. India's going to get bored and declare war on somebody else. Free Arabia? Really? You're at war with Free Arabia? That's who you decided to go after? I was really hoping Free Arabia would do better than that. That's a shame. Russian declared war on the Free African Republic. Wait, what? Hold on a minute. You declared war on fucking who? Why? Why the fuck did you declare war on Africa? Okay, there they go. Now they're declaring war on the Free Arabian Republics. Okay. They've got actually a big army on that border. They were waiting for that one. They were waiting for that one. The Revolutionary SSR still trying. The Arabians did actually land in Italy, which I was hoping they would do, and they did. So I'm glad that they did that. It's just a shame they're going to get absolutely fucking wiped by India and the Russians here. Free Africa still fighting Frontier. Frontier is slowly gaining ground. This has been a very long conflict and a bloody one. 185,000 casualties for Frontier, 421,000 for Free Africa. And it's looking like Frontier, division-wise, is catching up. So 69 divisions for Frontier, Free Africa, sitting at 53. So they're actually, now they have more. So that's actually pretty impressive, to say the least. So Frontier actually has an advantage now. Let's see if they can capitalize on it. If they can keep producing units and getting rid of that front, eventually Free Africa is just going to fully collapse on itself. And I wouldn't be surprised to see the Russians go in anyway, right after Free Arabia either collapses, which is kind of interesting to say because Free Arabia is actually pushing the line here a little bit. Russia, are you okay? The Arabians are holding this line with the Indians somewhat. They're not doing a great job, but they're trying. And they're actually pushing the line here, heading towards Moscow, which is not great, because the Russians could actually end up losing quite a lot of shit for this kind of conflict, which could put them behind. Again, India has more factories, so does the Indochinese. The Russians are behind on quite a lot of things right now. So if they lose to Free Arabia, that's just not good, because they declared the war, you know. If I was Free Arabia, I would pull everything out of Revolutionary SSR and dedicate it to the Russian front. Defend the front with India, like just put a defensive line right through Tehran down to the port here in like Kuwait city area. Defend that line, and everything else goes to the invasion of Russia. I think that would be best because they're actually, at least they were making gains. They're starting to slow down now, but they were actually making gains. We could see the continental SSR actually flop and declare war on the Russian state if the Free Arabians keep up their tirade here. However, I think that if the continental SSR does declare war on Free Arabia, this advancement into Russia is definitely going to stop as the continental USSR invades through. It all depends, I think, on what continental SSR does, whether the Russians will survive this war or not, or whether the Arabians will even survive this war or not. The Indians are slowly invading, but they're still being held fairly well, except for down in here. The Free Arabians just need to be very, very, very careful on who they're dealing with, and they got to be better on their defensive line. They're starting to lose some ground in Russia now, though, so I think the Russians are starting to overpower them again. The Revolutionary SSR has got to be close to capitulating. Wow, really? Not even quite half, a little over halfway. I'm surprised. That's kind of weird. Expected it to be more than that. I guess they haven't lost their capital. Rome still stands. Rome still does stand. They've got one division defending it, trying its best to defend it. These guys here are getting surrounded. Oh, that's not good. That's bad for them. Yeah, Turin, some troops in just north of Marseille getting surrounded. They've got nothing in Iberia, so that's just basically free for the taking. Like 3 units, that's it. I don't know why they're not. I don't know why Continental isn't dedicating more troops to that. I honestly don't know. It's kind of weird. Oh, India. Oh, you've taken so much. Stop. Stop doing this. This is for your own good. Just stop invading them. For a second. Just let them beat the Russians. Just let them kick the Russians' ass. Or at least kill a ton of Russian troops. Just let them, like, slaughter them. It's better for you. They'll be more tired after that. Like, whereas, yeah, the Russian SSR, they've lost 115,000 men. Like, they're losing hardcore. They've got some men surrounded in here that they could get killed. Just let the Arabians invade them. Just trust me on this. It's better for everybody. Also, Indochina, are you going to invade Japan anytime soon? That'd be great if you could do that. Where are you trying to land? Are you North Frontier? No. What are you trying to land in the Maldives for? It's owned by the Frontier. Why the fuck are you trying to land there? You weirdos. What? Maybe they're prepping for that war? I don't know. If we turn to North America, which is less exciting, Gran Colombia is actually invading the continental United States. They're in Texas and Louisiana. 13 sectors is actually losing this war. Oh my god, I didn't expect that. I highly expected 13 sectors to actually overtake them. But apparently Gran Colombia is doing way better than they should be. That's actually quite surprising. This war could flip-flop, keep that in mind. The factories are still very close, like very similar. 50 military there, 13 sectors at 48, so 2 more for Gran Colombia, yes, but that's it's very close. Gran Colombia's 13 sectors, sitting at 46 total divisions. Gran Colombia is sitting at 53, so very close in division count too. So that could still flip-flop. That could go either way, but just the fact that they've gotten that far in is actually very, very impressive. If they can keep that line, you know, kudos to them. Free Arabia is just continually not getting capitulated because its main force is moving through the Russians' territory, as Free India just comes in behind and takes everything else. Free India is not at war with the Africans. It's a shame that they aren't, because if they were at war with the Africans, they would probably focus on that rather than Arabia, and Arabia could just continue its weird tirade into Russia. I don't understand this front. I just don't get it. How are the Russians so shit that they declared the war? They're fighting an enemy that's now fighting on 2 fronts against way stronger, or supposedly, at the very least, more troops in India and Russia. And yet the Russians are losing terribly. I don't understand. Like, Arabia's taken most of the SSR, like, Iron Curtain states that it can. Ukraine, Belarus, both under its control, basically entirely at this point. They took Kharkov. They have Kursk, for God's sakes. What are you doing, Russia? You goddamn idiots. Do they even have... No, they don't have Smolensk. Do they have Minsk? They do. Minsk is right there. Yeah, so they fully have that. And Kiev. Yeah, wow. Jesus Christ. That's sad. That is genuinely depressing. But hey, it is what it is, right? I don't think they're going to last very much longer. I think the Indians are going to wipe them out. It's Free Arabia. They're doing okay. They're not gaining as much as they're losing, though, which is the problem. Revolutionary SSR, somehow still alive. I'm not sure where they've moved their... Oh, their capital is now in Lisbon, which is probably not the smartest decision, considering I don't think they have any troops on the Iberian Peninsula right now. I saw a flash of one in Valencia here. Yeah, there he is. But other than that... So they just lost their other capital. Yes, Genoa. Great idea. Perfect place for a capital, guys. Did they just naval invade that? Did they just land a troop there? What was the point of that? Oh, they did. They landed troops there. They landed 3 or 4. Oh, they just took Genoa. And Seville? Yeah. And they just lost Seville. Really? Palermo? That's how you pronounce that. Oh, they're done. They're done. Saw that coming. Who are these guys at war with now? And Airstrip 1 declared war on Gran Colombia. Continental declared war on the Arabians. So that's the Arabians done and dusted with now. There's no way they can survive now. They're going to get invaded from the other side. So this front was fine. Now it's not. So they're fucked now. The Russians have looked like they started to push them back too. So yeah, that was the beautiful run by Free Arabia there into Russia was absolutely amazing to watch, but sadly has come to an end. Oh, they did it! The Free Indo-Chinese have invaded the Japanese home islands, the Neo-Tokyos. Really? Why would you change the name? Why would you do that? Is Bangkok different? No, Bangkok's the same. So why even fucking bother? Like, I take it, yeah, Berlin. Okay, I figured. Why change it to Neo-Tokyo? But anyway, yes, so they've actually successfully done a naval invasion onto the Japanese home islands. So now they just have to keep that beachhead until they can reinforce it with more troops, and then hopefully just take out the Japanese. That would be great to see. That would be fantastic to see. Sorry for the pause there. My food showed up. My supper. I'm hungry. Very hungry. So yeah. It looks like Gran Colombia's ambitions have kind of backfired on them a little bit. A lot of their troops are surrounded in the great state of Texas. Looks like they're trying to fight back. Excuse me. Trying to get back to the line, but it's obviously not going to work out for them. Excuse me. Goodness gracious. They still have a port holding in just south of Houston. So they actually do still have a bit of a bubble here that they can hold because they are getting some supply. Whether they'll actually hang on to that or not, I don't really know, but hard to say. Free Arabia, the continental SSR, is now fully engrossed in invading them. It looks like they're actually still hanging on, though. They've surrounded some continental units in a few pockets, which is actually quite surprising. Oh, okay. They declared war on the Indonesian people. Oh, wow. The Indonesian people have control of the seas here. Holy shit. That's insane. Wow. Well, good luck with that, Russia. Good luck. The Indochinese, oh yeah, look at that. They've fully invaded Japan. Nagasaki has been switched as the new capital of Japan, as Tokyo has fallen. So it looks like the Indochinese are going to be able to beat the Japanese completely. Oh, they've actually invaded. They took Kokura and have invaded the main island. So they're moving to take Nagasaki here soon. I'm hoping they declare war on the Russians after that, but apparently the frontier have also decided to go in on the Arabian thing, but I guess they're not going to get anything out of that. The Indo-Chinese Republic declared war on India. Continental also declared war on India. I'm guessing the Russians probably did as well. No, the Russians have not declared war on the Indians, which is actually kind of surprising. The Russians are at war with the Continental, which is very interesting, because Continental went to war with the Indians. So the Russians, in this case then, are probably going to win against the SSR, which means the Indo-Chinese are basically fighting this war now on their own. Excuse me. The Russians, in this case, too, could get a nice upper hold because they're the only ones at war with the continental USSR besides India. And India is probably not going to take very much land. They're going to be quite distracted, I imagine, fighting off a very powerful Indochina. So I don't really know how well that's going to go. The Russians could actually come out on top on this one just by sheer luck of declaring war on the continental SSR and then winning probably very easily against them. The only chance out of that is if the Indians somehow manage to cut off Russian expansion by moving north here, taking Berlin first, which is possible. They've got a bubble going on here. That could stop the Russian expansion. But then the Russians are just going to declare war on India eventually. But again, Indochina will have taken a lot of that land, so it's still not a for sure thing, but the Russians definitely are more in the running than they were at the start of all of this, that's for very sure. Yeah. Frontier in Africa, still fighting their war. Frontier, very, very slow at making any kind of gains. They're also not training any new divisions, which is strange. The Africans still seem to be. Yeah. The Frontier still has more divisions, but they now have higher casualties, so they've lost 1 million men. The Africans still have a really good pool of manpower. The Frontier, not doing that well, but I don't think they're really upping their conscription very much, but I don't really know. Interesting, though. Very interesting. That war's gone on far longer than I expected it to. Gran Colombia getting pushed back into southern Mexico now. I think they've lost Mexico City at this point. Oh, Jesus. Yeah, they have. So that's a shame. Sucks for them. But it is what it is, I guess. They stretched a little too thin, a little too fast, I guess, before they could do much. The Indians are actually invading continental SSR very successfully now. The Russians have a good chance that they would invade the north here, but they're concentrating on the Baltics and parts of northern Poland. I don't know why. Oh, it looks like there's some German resistance up here. But the Indians could actually take a crap ton of that land. The Indochinese have moved pretty hastily into Indian territory, so they're actually fighting in India now, so that's not good for the Free Indians. They might be able to take land in Europe, but the Indochinese are chasing after them, which isn't great. It looks like we could have a showdown between Russia and Indochina for the very end of it. I don't think the Africans or Frontier have much of a chance anymore. This war's just been fighting for just so long. I don't think they've got much of a shot at that. So, yeah. It's a shame, but, you know, it is what it is, I suppose. So, yeah. Also, the Indonesians as well. They have a decent army and everything, but they're just probably not going to go anywhere, let's be honest. They're probably going to, you know, invade all these islands and stuff eventually. Who owns these? Who even owns these? Oh, Frontier. Yeah, they could declare war on Frontier at any time, I guess, and take out that kind of stuff. But you never know. You never know. I'm just surprised at how fast India's invading Europe. Oh, it looks like the Russians were the ones to take Berlin. They were the first ones there. The Indians seem to have taken, I believe, more land, though. The Russians are just meeting some heavy resistance in the Baltics, which is causing them some problems. The Indians either are finding less resistance, or their troops are just way better. It's one or the other. I really don't know which, but it is definitely one or the other. I wonder if continental USSR, when that goes down, if the Russians will declare war on the Indians, or will they declare war on somebody else? I mean, it's hard to say. The Indians are getting invaded pretty heavily now, but they're actually holding a good line in the north here, and the Indochinese are only really able to move on a south line. So the Indians are holding this, like, line right in here, almost. They're holding it fairly well. I'm sorry, declared war on who? How do you declare war on all of these people? They're all dead. That doesn't make any fucking sense. Like, how are you at war with... How did you declare war on... What? What? Japan's dead. You can't declare war on them. I fucking saw that. You can't fool me. Right, London? Big Brother's just hanging on in London. Like, please don't touch me. Oh, the Salvation people are actually taking some over from Ingsoc here. That would be interesting. Having a coup d'etat just happen. I wonder what they would be called. Honestly, I'm kind of curious as what they'd be called if it flopped. Like flip-flopped over. Surveillance state. Really? No kidding. Oops. No, I don't care about their Air Force. Thought police. Jesus. It's quite the focus tree, I would say. That's pretty crazy. Some interesting buffs. Very interesting. They've actually got a lot of factories, too. It's actually quite impressive. But I think that's artificially built up. That's not what Britain has in the start. The Indians have cut off the Russians from taking any other parts of Europe. So they've kind of slivered up in this northern area of Germany. But that's all they're really able to get. Continental USSR is pretty much fucked. Oh yeah. Yeah, they're screwed. This war is all but over, honestly. Free India's not doing too hot either, to be fair. And there they go. Wow. Look at all that land India just took. So it looks like the... Yeah, that's fine. There doesn't need to be any steel. Who cares? So the Free Indians declared war on the Russians, or vice versa. I'm really not sure how that went. That'll be interesting. Very, very interesting for sure. Free India's got a decent amount of units. More than the Russians, but they're also fighting a war with the Indochinese. Now, the big problem with that is if Russia's actually able to push into Europe fast enough especially if they cut off the Indo-Chinese from warring them in Europe. That could be bad. The Russians could get some very, very valuable land out of that, which would not be oh shit, which would not be good. Apparently, wherever we go, we're just met with stuff. Frontier is actually getting pushed back again. The Africans have started to push them back down, so I wonder if this will sway that war at all. Grand Columbia is slowly getting pushed back still, it looks like here. I don't know if they'll ever recover or not. Their factories are considerably less now than the Americas. 13 sectors here, which is going to definitely hobble them quite a bit. And they don't have a very big army presence anymore either. Most of their army was destroyed. So, yeah. Frontier is getting pushed back very quickly, though. I wonder if that'll be it for them, or if they'll be able to, or if they'll just retreat to Australia. Probably that, and then you'll see Africa declare war on, like, India later on. That would be interesting, the Africans invading through the Suez. That would cut Russia off a little bit, I think. Because they would invade through the Suez, and I bet you they could naval invade somewhere, like, on the peninsula here. There's nothing here, right? There's no defenses. So, they could potentially do that. The Indians are holding the Russians fairly well on most lines. They're just not able to hold the Indo-Chinese for varying reasons, which isn't great for them, but good if you're not pro-Russia winning this one. Yeah, the lines are moving slightly. You can see Finland here is definitely a loss. There's some fighting in southern Sweden, some pockets of the Russians fighting there. They could make a breakout, but I think the Indians would probably be able to defend at Copenhagen, I would imagine. It looks like there's some units headed that way anyway. So we'll see what happens there. But it's hard to say. This is basically just a giant war on a 3-front. But yeah, I think it's going to take a little while, so I'm just going to pause it until we see a true victor on this 3-front war. And if anything interesting happens, I'll unpause it. But it's going to take a little while, I think. So I'm just going to pause it, and we'll see you all in 2 seconds. So just as a bit of an update, the war is still very much ongoing. India, while being pushed back, is still probably a fair way out from actually giving up. But they've been really impressive, actually. The Indo-Chinese and the Russians were actually stopped for quite a long time here along the Levant line, and they could not really push forward. In fact, India was pushing into Russia at one point. However, the Indo-Chinese managed to rally and pretty much push them almost out of Arabia. There's still some fighting going on in Oman area and parts of the UAE, but they pushed them out, managed to get through this gap here and up through Constantinople. Well, Istanbul, not Constantinople. But yeah, managed to push them through that line. And once this frontier was relieved for the Russians were able to rally those troops onto the main European line and push the Indians back. It's been a very slow, slogging war. Casualties, oh, let's see here, go to the Russians. Casualties for the Free Indians at 8.9 million dead, which is insane. 5.5 from the Russians, 3.4 from Indochina. The Russians have lost 9.6 million casualties total from Free India and 9,000 from Free Indonesia. Wow. But yeah, almost 10 million there, which is insane. And Free Indochina is the one here that is definitely taking the least, although still taking a ton of casualties at 3.15 million dead, which is insane. So this war has been super costly for all sides. Now, as far as reserves go, most of them are okay. Russia at 5.3 still, the Indo-Chinese at 5.4, the Indians at 5.4, the Indo-Chinese are at 10 million. So the Indo-Chinese have the upper hand here overall, but whether they'll be the overall victor is hard to say. The Free Africans, however, have managed to push the frontier out off of the continent. They've been doing some minor attempts at naval landing on Madagascar, but the frontier fleet is good enough that it's able to fight off the African fleet for the time being. For the total future, hard to say, especially if Indochina or the Russians declare war on frontier in the near future. Hard to say whether they can actually do anything. In North America, 13 sectors in Gran Colombia are still, duking it out. There seems to be a bit of a stalemate in the war, however. Not much pushing really going on. The 13 sectors are now on the South American continent fully. It's just a matter of pushing them down to take out their capital and major cities. For the most part, losing the northern section of the continent is not a big deal for Gran Colombia. It's pretty much south of this kind of line I'm drawing here, just on the southern fringes of the Amazon rainforest for the dark green, and south of that, because that's where, you know, you've got Rio, you've got Sao Paulo, you've got Buenos Aires, you've got Montevideo, you've got Santiago, you know, all these major centers, right? So that's where most of their point is going to be, whereas, you know, there's obviously a few like Bogota up here, Caracas, and, you know, La Paz and stuff like that, but not as much in the north as there is the south. So the Gran Colombians could still possibly rally, but it's very unlikely. But yeah, I think the war here is still going to take some time. You can see they've pushed a little bit since I started talking, but not very much. They've captured like a key port at Venice and the cities here of Salzburg, and they're moving up towards Munich and southern parts of Germany, and they're moving in towards Berlin. The Russians are moving towards Berlin. I think what's going to happen is, as you can see, like the lines are pretty much stable and the same. The Russians are going to get most of northern Germany and the Netherlands, and then the Indochinese are going to be the ones that take the Iberian Peninsula, the Italian boot, and that kind of stuff there. So, yeah, I think that's how it's going to end up. And then we're going to see Indochina probably declare war on Africa first. But we'll see what happens once this war fully concludes. But like I said, still a little while, I think, there. There's 68% towards capitulation, and there's a ton of Europe to still go. So we'll see you in a sec. Wow, wow, wow. Kind of an unexpected little twist there. I'm going to just unpause it here so we can let the wars continue. So India completely surrendered, and you can see the borders are not what I expected them to be. Oh, Jesus, it is very laggy. Let's see if I go into Britain if it's a little less. So, a little less. But still very laggy. Indochina has this large pocket in France, northern Spain, and parts of northern Italy. They also have this strange little pocket in Istanbul and near Anatolia, which is very odd. And then they took most of the Arabian Peninsula and a good chunk of the Middle East. Two scenarios could come out of this. Now, keep in mind Indochina's troop count. Let's just pause it for a second. It's 1.12k, made up of mostly, I'm pretty sure pretty much all infantry divisions. Yeah, by the looks of it, pretty much all infantry divisions. Most likely all the same template, right? So their main template they're actually using here is infantry division, which isn't terrible. It's got support artillery. It's not a terrible division, so that's really what their backbone is, which is interesting. So yeah, and then if you look at the Russians with total troop count of 692, 344 military factories. The military factories for Indochina sitting at what? 440. So there's a distinct advantage to the Indochinese there. The Russians, they're recruiting infantry division as well, which is slightly thicker, but does not have any support artillery. So the problem with that is going to really be the fact that they have no, bombardment on the charge. They're also making some garrison brigades, which are pretty shit and honestly not really worth talking about. A big problem, though, as you can see between the two, is, of course, there's not enough equipment. The Russians have run into an infantry equipment shortage of quite a lot, which is not good. Whereas the Indo-Chinese, if we look at theirs, they still have a good surplus of 487,000 guns. They're losing 7.3k per day. However, they still have quite a few guns to go before they hit any kind of deficit, which will give them quite a large advantage over the Russians for sure. The big thing is, can the Russians hold these pockets, push them in, and squash them? If they can do that, A, they'll gain some very valuable land in Europe for factory building and just factories being there already. And they'll have killed off a huge chunk of Indochina's divisions. If they can't, and Indochina does what it's currently doing, which is expanding those pockets and eventually is able to link them up with their main forces in the Levant and Arabian area, then Russia is completely fucked. If these can permanently link up together, there's absolutely no way the Russians can possibly win this war. The divisions are too close. There's more for Indochina, and Russia just needs to rush and quash this pocket in Europe especially, and the pocket growing in Turkey, because they're just going to continue to grow. You can see the Russians having some minor successes in and around this area, but overall most of the wins are going into Indochina's hands. There's going to be some sporadic fighting in northern China, but I think most of the fighting that actually really truly matters, unless Russia can really push down, is going to be this European pocket for sure, and the link up of the Turkish pocket and moving up through the Caucasus. Because, of course, Russia, as soon as it loses Moscow, is going to definitely take a big hit. And by the time they actually get to Moscow, they've lost a huge industrial base in Eastern Europe, the Caucasus, and what's left here in the Middle East region. Because they do hold big cities like Tehran, Baku, and Tbilisi, like pretty significant cities. The Russians getting pushed back in the Iberian sector here, which is kind of bad. If they lose the Iberian sector here, that's going to free up some Indo-Chinese troops to go back on the front in Europe there. It's just really not looking great for the Russians right now, but it's hard to really tell, especially while recording, because it's just sucking my FPS way the hell down. It's kind of gross. We actually did see earlier an actual successful landing by the Africans on Madagascar, but it was beat back by the frontier troops who have reinforced the island with some divisions here. So they've got 6 divisions landed defending the only port on the island now. They only had 1 before and it got beat back, but they managed to land some more troops before they lost the island in totality. So yeah, they still have a decent military kicking it on Australia as well as these little islands and stuff out here. So I'm going to pause it again though, mostly because if I don't, there's a good possibility this could crash just due to the fact that the recorder is taking up a lot of the FPS as well. So I'm trying to free up as much as I possibly can. So major developments happen, I will definitely let you guys all know. So I'm thinking the Russians are going to capitulate almost any time here now. The vast majority of their army has been absolutely destroyed. They were able for quite some time actually to nearly subdue the Turkish pocket. They had actually beat them back to a line here, pretty much directly diagonal from Izmir down to Antalya here, Anatolia area. But the European pocket, they didn't subdue very well at all. They did make some initial gains and cut them off from the coast of the English Channel, but it was a quick fight back. A lot of Russian troops got trapped in the Iberian Peninsula and killed. A lot of encirclements happened in Germany. The Free Africans actually invaded part of Italy there, which is weird, as well as Corsica, Sardinia here, and Cyprus, as well as Crete, funnily enough. Yeah, and there was a lot of encirclements and stuff. Ooh, Jesus. When the Turkish pocket started to really fight back again, there was a big encirclement just south of the Pyrenees here in like Armenia area and parts of northern Turkey, and there was a lot of sort of encirclements as well in the northern areas of the Balkans, so like Hungary, northern Romania and Moldova. Lots of surroundings going on there, which basically destroyed what was left of the Russian military. Like, they are down to, like, something like 30 divisions. Oh, Indochina. No. Russia. Hello, Russia. 16 divisions even now. Wow. Yeah, so the Russian military was absolutely, completely annihilated in some pretty heavy pitched fighting. Very good encirclements by the AI, actually. This mod and encirclements is quite impressive. Pretty much every victory has been won by one of the attacking armies encircling a good portion of the other army and then wiping the rest of it out. We saw that kind of with Grand Colombia, even though the 13 sectors really isn't doing much of an offensive anymore. There's some sporadic fighting going for the borders here, but they're not really pushing. But Grand Colombia's army was fairly heavily decimated by 13 sectors as well. But yeah, the Russians pretty much ready to call it a day, I do believe. Now, we will see after that the Free Africans with their 230 divisions go to war with Free Indochina with their 1,000+ divisions. Oh, shit. Peace conference. There we go. Yeah, Free Indonesia declared war on the African Republic. And, yeah, so that's going to be quite the conflict, I think. They look like they're ready on a defensive line. I don't know if the Africans are actually going to be able to get more troops on the Suez first. But, of course, there's going to be some fighting over the Italian territory. I don't think that'll be a very long fight. Same with some land here. Murcia is under the control of a very large contingent. 26 total divisions. That is a lot of divisions going in for that fight. But, yeah, the Suez is going to become a big battleground here very, very shortly. Between these two superpowers, and that's going to be the last major fight, I think, of this whole campaign. But I really don't see Indochina losing this conflict at all. So I'm just going to, for sake of time, just call it here for Free Indochina. Congratulations, Free Indochina. You were not my first pick at all to win this. Like anywhere close. So congratulations to Free Indochina for being the victor, and congratulations to Free Africa too for being the second last surviving power. It wasn't expected either. I actually thought Indochina would have declared war on them before the Russians, but hey, it is what it is. So that's all good and fine. So thank you so much for watching, guys, and I'll see you all next time. Peace.